everybody. I hope you're having a fantastic day today and that the gods are blessing your journey and that your summer is ripening very well. Getting some overcast today. It's really nice outside. It's nice and cool. I did a bunch of work in the garden this morning and it gave me some time to reflect with building a path. And as I'm building this path, I'm thinking about my path and my future path and different paths coming together, which of course makes me think about covens and practicing solitary. So I just wanted to share a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of, just some wisdom about being in a coven or not being in a coven. And a lot of times we feel like we need to practice with other people, and you do. There is great benefit in working with other people. They can help you not only explore your own self through, questioning what you're doing and asking you, and not questioning you whether or not it's the right thing to do, but questioning you like, what are you doing and why are you doing that? And just in simply explaining to another person your practice and your beliefs and all of those things, it helps you reflect. And it helps you to better understand them. And they always say there's no better way to learn something than to teach it to somebody else. So, if you've got a daily practice and you have a friend who's just starting and you teach them that, it can really help you strengthen your own practice by sharing that with other people. And that is a great benefit of working with others. There's also a lot to learn from other people because you can be the one asking the questions and you can say, well, why do you do that? And how do you do that? And what is your philosophical belief in that? And what deities do you call to and why? And share their myths. And it just presents that opportunity to share experience. So both sides can be learning and teaching and growing and sharing, and it provides this great opportunity. And one that you don't get when you're practicing by yourself and when you are solitary, because you can read 100 books, but it's not a conversation, and therefore you're not exploring that idea past what it is on paper. And so that is just one of the differences. Now, I'm not saying that you should be in a coven and that's the only way to go, because being in a coven is hard. Being in a coven is not like let's all be cheery friends. I mean, the craft is a great depiction, not because somebody's evil and somebody's good and blah, 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 but because there's a lot of emotional connections happening, and these emotional connections are really deep. And it's not... Okay, so let's talk about some differences in being in a coven. Okay, so we'll define a coven. Most people define a coven as people working in a group together, doing magic. Spiritually bonded. A lot of times in order to be in a coven, there's some kind of initiation process, and you have to dedicate yourself and initiate yourself, and this can be done, it's normally done in ritual. My coven has one of the funniest initiation rituals. We went up to the mountains to do our initiation. We forgot our flashlights. We brought my cats. My cats got stuck in a bush. I had a half feral cat who really hated people. So by half feral, I mean she would let me feed her and she would come in the house when it was cold. And she loved my other dogs. Okay, hold on. Speaking of animals, pause. My dog doesn't bark at the neighbor's dog. He just goes over there and pees on the fence right where the neighbor dog is so that the neighbor dog barks at him. He thinks it's great. He's an old cranky man who just likes to harass the neighbor dogs. Anyways, he's not even harassing them. He's just peeing on the fence next to them. Random tangent because of barking dogs. But, so, normally when you join... so the initiation, blah, blah, all that stuff happened. We dropped our food in the fire. One of my coven members, she tripped and rolled in the fire, and then another one had to wash their hot dog off in the river. It was just hilarious. The whole event was really funny. There was a lot of humor in it. We had a lot of challenges that we had to face, and we have like a outdated joke at this point that everything in the coven has to be hard and a challenge. in order for us to learn whatever lesson it is that we need to learn and achieve whatever it is to achieve. Now, at this point, so we've been a coven for many years. Let's see, 2005, I want to say. But at this point, we don't practice together. Some of us are barely even friends anymore. We're just at this really weird place because it's a long time. I mean, that's 10, 15 years. And we've just gone through a lot of changes in who we are, and people have moved, and just all kinds of different things. And these kind of relationships are hard, especially when you start blending your friendships and your coven and all the things that you're doing. The more hats that you wear together, the more places there are for you to clash. So just start to think about that as you're starting to join a coven and you love each other and you want to do everything together. Just make sure that you have your other places and that all of your hats go together. But so that's kind of a side tangent. Well, not really though, because when we're talking about a coven, being in a coven is not all, let's get together on the full moon and do magic and da 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 da. And that should be part of it. And I think that covens that regularly practice magic together in that way have a stronger bond and do more productive things together. But it's about experiencing as a group. And when you're experiencing magical things, these are very deep spiritual activities that you're doing. And your spirituality runs very deep. I feel like your spirituality and your sexuality and your emotional state of well-being, these ideas all are very deep rooted. And so when you start to work with other people, it's really easy to cut deep when you are doing magic or talking about magic or doing that kind of work together and you're talking about your spiritual beliefs. Like I said, some people see God as Jesus and some people see God as a three-headed dog. And when you start to have those conversations in a coven and you start to talk about, oh, what God do you believe in and who do you call to and what's your patron and all of those things. And then sometimes you'll find, oh, we both call to the same deity. You call to Diana and I call to Artemis, but they're the same thing. But they're not really the same thing. And there starts to be clashes. And it's really easy for your feelings to be hurt because you are very emotionally attached to your spirituality. And when somebody questions your experience or your beliefs or your presence in your magical space, it is defeating and it can be very emotionally charging, I guess. Because, it can be good or bad. You can have a conversation with somebody about their spirituality and you can uplift them and you can help them grow and to become better and to learn deeper and understand those things better. But on the other side of that, you can also say simple comments that can really make a person question their own spiritual beliefs, which then makes them doubt. And then doubt leads to bad things. And we all know, doubt in your life can be really detrimental. And when that starts to come from your coven, that can also be incredibly detrimental to your overall whole self. And that's why you talk to a lot of people and they're jaded about being in a coven because they're like, oh, I did that and it turned out really horrible and there were all of these bad things that happened. And a lot of times they'll forget the good things that happen because they did learn something, they did achieve something, they had some kind of bond. That's why they started it in the first place. And so I think that when we enter into a coven, okay, so one of the arguments that I've had with my coven members, and that I see a lot in other covens, is the way that you approach a coven relationship. And a lot of times you'll hear people say, this is my coven sister or brother. And when you start to talk about a relationship between a brother and sister, there is a certain amount of poking that goes on between siblings. You make fun of your siblings make fun of you've been with this person their whole life or your whole life or whoever, whatever. So there's a little bit of jabbing and poking that goes on. You also have a lot of comfort with them, and I think this comfort is why people compare their coven relationship to siblings, because you have this this bond that's deep and you feel should be secure enough to go through anything, just like you would with your sibling. Yeah, there are siblings who don't, whatever, but for the most part, when it comes right down to it, your sibling is there for you. And even though when you fight with your sibling, or you say mean things to your sibling, or your sibling says something hurtful because they jabbed you and they're like, ugh, they know how to do that because they are your sibling and they know what upsets you. And that kind of relationship. And when you treat a coven relationship as though it was a sibling relationship, it leads to someone getting their feelings hurt. I mean, that's just how it is, because here's a prime example. So my sister is also one of my coven members. And so that makes for an interesting dynamic between us and the rest of the coven. But anyway, so I had made a post and said a thing about fairies. I leave all the cabinet doors throughout my house open. And it's a way that I let the fairies in and out of the cabinets. And so I had made a post that was like, oh, I finally realized why I leave all the cabinet doors open, and it's so that the fairies always have a place to be, and maybe sometimes it's the fairies opening the cabinet and not me and leaving them open. And it was very much like a spiritual, like, oh. Now, my mom also leaves all the cabinets open, because she just doesn't close anything, ever. So when I saw my sister the next time, she was like, oh, your post on Facebook was so cute about the fairies, but you know that shit ain't because of no magic. That's because mom leaves everything open, and you got that from mom, and that's a learned behavior. She's also a psychiatrist, and so she's got all this mental jumbo. Anyways, so as my sister, she was just poking that jab at me, and that made it funny, and we have that relationship, and that's okay between us. However, if she wasn't my sister and we didn't already have this rapport of like, let me poke at you, and it's our mom that she's kind of making fun of and whatever, it did kind of hurt my feelings for a minute, because I was like, aw, sad face, like you took away my magic moment, you made it into this mundane thing. And so from a coven perspective and a magic perspective, I was like, oh, a little sad, my little droopy. As my sister, I was like, I jabbed her back and just talked some more smack back to her, because that's what we do. And not all siblings. I got siblings that I don't treat that way and that we're nice to each other. My younger siblings, I'm much older than them. I'm 9 and 20 years older than them. So if I'm poking jabs at them like that, they just feel like I'm attacking them, and that's really mean. So I'm not saying that that's all relationships are like that between siblings. So don't misconstrue that for whatever. I know siblings who are really nice to each other. They do have those little underlying jokes that they hit at each other, like, oh, but when you start hitting those jokes at your spirituality, it cuts way deeper, and it makes you question and doubt and all of those things, and you feel judged, and all of these negative things that you don't want associated with your spirituality. And that's why a lot of people move to a solitary practice, because they don't want to feel judged, and they don't want to feel questioned and all of that stuff. But so when you call your coven siblings, and they're your siblings, your brother and your sister, chances are you are going to have that person in the coven who is more like me, who does just joke around and is kind of, the nice way that we say is cavalier. I'm very cavalier, I'm very honest, and it can be hurtful. And so with my sister, her and I can poke fun all we want. However, if I spoke to her, or even she spoke to the other coven members, the way that we speak to each other, they would be upset. They would feel judged, and they would feel attacked, and they would feel like we were negatively affecting their spirituality, which then leads to malice and discontent and upset and people not happy in the situation. And if you don't have a presence in the coven where you can openly talk about these feelings, and work it out and do what you need to do, and everybody needs to feel as though they can be honest all the time, then, it just leads to more and more issues. And we could talk. We could go interview lots of people and ask them about their coven experiences, and I imagine that everyone has had at least one negative experience with at least one coven member, or a whole coven, or a whatever. Um, and I honestly think that it comes down to this dynamic that for some reason we've created, we're siblings in the coven, and then there's a mother and a father, priestess and a priest. And so there's this family dynamic that is created. And when you create this family dynamic, there's a lot of underlying issues. Everybody's got family baggage of their own, so everybody brings their own belief. Like, so you have your own mom relationship scaffolding, what you believe this relationship should be, and what you believe it should not be, and what your ideal relationship should be. And when we look at our priestess, we put it in this ideal category. You should be the ideal mother. And then you see a lot of priests and priestesses and covens who get that I am the ideal mother. And you end up having a lot of problem with them. My dad calls me Mother Goddess, especially when we're out doing events and whatnot together. And there is a Mother Goddess of another coven that also goes to events that we do. And many, many moons ago, we were at an event, and it was really funny. I've met her many, many times. I've known her pretty much my whole life. But anyways, someone introduced us, and my dad was like, oh, Mother Goddess and Mother Goddess coming together with the Mother Goddesses. And she felt, you could see on her face, there was a brief moment where she was like, oh, this lady's stepping on my presence. This little girl, because I was young. This was like 15 years ago. And so it was just this weird, like, oh, we're creating this. And when you put that title mother on it, and when you put that title whatever, that makes you in this place. And when you're in a coven and you're doing magic together, yes, there are going to be the priest and the priestess who have the... Well, not all covens. Some covens will be made of all priestesses, where there is no higher priestess, where you are all equals and you all come together as equals and you work together as equals. And then that's the way that you maintain it. There will be other covens where there's a council of elders or more experienced practitioners who are kind of in charge and work with the other ones. And that's more of the atmosphere that's a productive atmosphere. When you start getting into the covens where there's one matriarch of the coven and there's one patriarch of the coven, or priest or father, or whatever terms that they put on themselves, one leader of the coven, you get that hierarchy, and then there's the bickering among the siblings, and then everybody's hurting everybody's feelings and nobody's actually listening, and it just becomes an issue. So when I look at a coven relationship, this is not your sibling, this is your spouse. And there is a big difference between the way that we would talk to, say, our sister than we would talk to our spouse. And you would never, I guess some relationships are more playful or more whatever in that way, but in the reality is that when you approach a relationship as your spouse, you have to be very honest, you have to be very open, you have to be very, willing to communicate and listen and say things from the heart with thought. You can't just say some stuff and be like, blah, you didn't get that because you like the fairies, that's from your mom. You can't say that. You'd have to approach that differently, like, I kind of thought, or, mom leaves those things open. Anyways, let's not go back to the trash truck. Hello, trash truck. If you approach the relationship in a coven more as a relationship like you would a spouse, somebody that you're in a relationship, no, we're not having sexual relations. This is a platonic relationship. And the intimate act that you do together is magic. And that's where the intimacy comes in, because that is a very intimate moment. And even if you have all your clothes on and you're doing whatever and you're not like Gregorian naked in the woods, you're still having an intimate moment doing magic. And therefore, you do have this intimacy in your relationship. You do have a sensitivity in that relationship, and it should be approached as such. And when it's approached as such, and you are open and you are honest and you communicate with love, and you communicate from a place of love and understanding, and then you're more likely to have a productive coven. And when you find covens that are more like this, they are more productive. But at the same time, I think that covens cycle. Um, I've, I've been into 2 covens, initiated through blood, and the first one lasted a year or 2, not very long. It was a short period of time. We were very, very young. She moved, we moved, everybody moved, and then that was just kind of it. But it was a learning experience. And then, you enter into another coven and you learn. And then if it fizzles out or breaks apart or does whatever and you move forward, you move to a new coven and you learn from a new coven and you're learning from new people. And you're not stuck in one place. But again, you need to approach each one of these relationships with love and understanding and compassion and honesty and integrity, and come to that as a place like, let's work together, let's be open and honest and communicate. Communication is key. And, communicate without judging and all of those things. So it's a learning process in more than just magic. But, so, working with a coven, working solitary are both going to bring different practices and different challenges and different strengths and all of that stuff. So we've talked about the coven aspect, the good things and kind of the challenges, and you should approach it more like a spousal relationship than a sibling relationship. If you join a coven, if you're Wiccan and you're looking into that hierarchy setup with the chords and the whatever, then you are going to have a mother priestess or a father priest, and they are going to be in charge, and there are going to be levels, and it's going to tier down, and that's the way that Wiccan is set up. If you're looking for something that's not set up like that, then find a different pantheon of paganism. The druid organizations that I've worked with and know, there's a pastor or a preacher or whatever, there's a priest or priestess. It's like the main person, and it's more of a kind of like a church setup where they are presenting, but there's not like a hierarchy of levels. There are elders, and it's more of that natural state with the pastor or preacher or whatever. And then you just have to kind of find the group that works for you, and then don't feel like you're going to be stuck there forever, and learn from it and be open and honest and all of those things. Now, on the other side, you have solitary. In solitary, one of the things that you learn in solitary is about yourself. It's a lot of self-reflection, a lot of self-growth, a lot of connecting with the elements and all of those things on a one-on-one basis. And even if you're in a coven, you're still going to practice solitary because you need those aspects. You need to reflect. You need to do those things on your own. You need to meditate and meet with the divine and grow your practice and do those kind of things on your own and heal your soul and deal with your own things and all of that stuff on your own. And then you can grow from there. And that's what you're going to do in your solitary. I think a lot of solitary practitioners right now are also reaching out online. So they practice solitary and then they meet with other pagan people online, which has really facilitated a lot of growth. And I think it's been a great adjustment from either you're solitary or you're in a coven. Well, I practice solitary, but I know all these people that I talk to all over the place. And that can help people feel more together. You also have to be aware online, though, that there are trolls out there, and there are people who are kind of jerks, and there are people who are not there for the best intentions, or people say things that are messed up online. So that brings in a whole other aspect, but that's that learning to be online and learning to deal with all of that stuff. And learning to just not read the comments when they get horrible and shut it off or turn it out or whatever, move on from it. Because really, those comments don't matter. But anyway, so there is no right or wrong, or you should do it this way or that way. I think that you should do both. I think you should find people to talk to and practice with and experience your magic with, and that you should also experience your magic as yourself and in your own aspects, and find what works for you and build a strong solitary practice so that when you meet with other people, you can come together and be productive and all that great stuff. So, now that I feel like I'm rambling on and now the sun is way up high, I hope that everybody has a great day. If you have any questions about covens or practicing solitary, or you're looking for some good resources, just let me know. I do know a lot of good covens that are, some are open and looking for other people, and some you have to kind of get more invited to, but just, reach out, let me know. I can definitely help point you in the right direction. I hope everybody has a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all that great stuff, and blessed be.